Good afternoon. I'm Tracy Lewis, the Chief Communications Officer for Guilford County Schools, and we want to welcome you and thank you for being with us this afternoon for this media briefing on the expansion of learning hubs and mental health support for the students of Guilford County. Thank you for joining Congresswoman Kathy Manning and Superintendent Dr. Whitney Oakley for this momentous occasion. And we are going to turn it over to Dr. Oakley at this time for introductions and the presentations. Thank you.
Thank you, and thanks for joining us. We're going to give a couple updates, first around learning hubs and then some mental health efforts this afternoon, and then can open up for any questions at the end. But also, in addition to Representative Manning, want to also welcome Latasha Henry, a mental health coordinator here in Guilford County Schools, and of course, Chase Arrington, principal at Western Middle School. Really appreciate the opportunity to share more about our learning recovery efforts here in Guilford County. I also want to express my sincere appreciation to Congresswoman Kathy Manning for her commitment to always supporting public education. Now more than ever, our students need people who will show up and who will not stop working and who will not back down. We need kids that have role models that will show up for them and not lose hope, but continue to press forward even during difficult times. We've talked about this before, but the future of our students and our community absolutely depends on it. The last few years have indeed been some of the most challenging years our public schools have ever had to face. They've redefined the way that every school functions, whether it's an elementary school, a middle school, a high school, or even higher ed. The pandemic has been the most singular disruptive force in education in a century, which is why we want to talk a little bit about academic recovery and our learning hub efforts. Today, I want to emphasize our work that has been accomplished through the learning hubs. GCS launched these at all 15 comprehensive high schools here in the district in the winter of 2021. At the high schools under the learning hub model, we provide food and transportation, and students have the opportunity to complete their homework, to get additional support from teachers. And how we staff learning hubs depends on the needs of the school and what the students are saying that they need. Students, teachers, principals, and parents who have taken advantage of this opportunity speak so highly of this flexible model and this flexible learning time that really is helping students. We've seen early success on the impact of learning hubs and what they've done for students. We know from the data that targeted tutoring and learning hubs have been working. Our learning hubs and high dosage tutoring programs have allowed thousands of students to learn in smaller, more focused environments, meeting students right where they are so that they can extend learning beyond the traditional day and receive other supports that they need as well. Our numbers are growing. We've increased the number of students who are attending learning hubs by 104% compared to where we were just last January. This year alone, we've served more than 5,418 students. While it's still too early to know exactly the impact the learning hubs have had on students, the preliminary analysis is promising. It shows that students who participated in the learning hubs during the 21-22 school year had a 6% higher graduation rate than those who did not. Thanks to the $2.2 million in grant funding secured by Representative Manning, we will be able to expand this work to our middle schools through the Middle School Learning Hubs Expansion Project. And the $2.2 million grant is comprehensive in terms of services, including access to academic recovery programs, mental health supports, materials, and meals. The funding will also support meetings for families to learn about college planning, test-taking strategies, high school success, the college-ready course selection, and opportunities to earn college credit in high school through CTE pathways. The funding is so important, especially now. We have to keep taking steps forward in this work. National research suggests that it will take several years for students to recover from the loss that they experience. So we need to embrace the community-wide efforts to accelerate learning, and we all have to advocate at every level to ensure this critical work does not sunset when the federal relief funds expire. And in places where recovery is needed most, there may need to be more relief money to support the work moving forward. And that means districts need all the support that they can get. We're very fortunate here, situated across many universities, North Carolina A&T, UNCG, Brown, and we have the support of Harvard and University in this project as well. These institutions of higher ed are helping provide a diverse group of tutors and a strong research body as we move forward in our work with students. The partners provide graduate students and undergraduate students to serve as tutors, who gives more GCS students more equitable access to tutoring, which is a costly service to provide. The students are now receiving one-on-one and small group instruction aligned with our curriculum, delivered by well-trained tutors. Tutors who attend these universities receive additional support in how to tutor and best practices, and they're exposed to K-12 public schools. They see that schools foster an environment of learning and engagement and see teaching as an exciting career. We need more teachers, so this is good for all of us. Community and university tutors also receive funding that supports continuing their own education. As of December, we had 670 tutors on our payroll providing services to kids. That includes 60 college students, 260 community leaders, 25 high school students, 220 of our own teachers tutoring virtually in the evenings, and then 40 helpline virtual tutors. So we've started to see some preliminary results. We saw increases in proficiency on 16 out of 19 end of grade and end of course tests last year. All student groups, racial groups, students with disabilities, and English learners saw increases in their own testing proficiency. 102 schools saw increases in their performance composite. Every single student group in our early grades K-3 saw double-digit increases in their early literacy skills from the beginning to the end of the year. In math, our district is outperforming the state. We're recovering at a faster rate in grades 3 through 8. Also, we had a 140% increase in industry-recognized credentials that our graduates earned, and our Black and Hispanic students had the highest rate in the history of the district in 21-22. We are certainly honored to have Representative Kathy Manning here with us today. Please share with us about how you're helping support these efforts. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Dr. Oakley. I'm so delighted to be here with you and your team today. I'm Congresswoman Kathy Manning. I am so proud to represent North Carolina's 6th Congressional District. And I am thrilled to be here to celebrate the $2.2 million in federal funding that I secured to expand learning loss intervention to the district's 22 middle schools. 2 years ago, as Dr. Oakley just said, when I first went to Congress, the COVID-19 pandemic was at its height. Schools were closed, forcing students to learn from home. The pandemic put enormous pressure on teachers as they abruptly switched to remote learning, and it had a detrimental impact on students' education, on their social emotional development, and of course on their mental health. As educators and administrators worked tirelessly to help students navigate the challenges of the pandemic, I advocated for additional resources to support public schools. In January of 2021, I helped to pass the American Rescue Plan, which provided funding to reopen schools. I'm proud that Guilford County put the nearly $200 million that they received from the American Rescue Plan to good use. And they have used the ARP funding to attract qualified teachers to our classrooms, to address mental health challenges, and to curb learning loss. This funding is making a difference for students, for faculty, for families, and for staff. And I've been proud to fight for additional funding for our schools. In 2021, the Congressional Appropriations Committee introduced community funding projects. These would allow representatives to accept project funding requests from our school systems, our nonprofits, our local governments, and we were able to advocate for federal funding to support qualified projects. I saw this program as an opportunity to help Guilford County schools receive funding for an innovative program to combat learning loss. I fought for that funding. I lobbied my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to share the importance of this program. And those efforts helped me deliver $2 million in federal funding for the Guilford County Schools Intensive Tutoring Program last year. And as Dr. Oakley has just outlined, that funding has helped over 5,000 Guilford County students get academic support. And what's more, it allowed GCS to employ thousands of undergraduate and graduate students from local universities and colleges, creating jobs and helping encourage students to enter careers in education. We know how important that is because we do have a teacher shortage. The program was so successful that students who participated in the program had a 6% increase in graduation rates. When Guilford County Schools shared their success and expressed their intent to expand this program to younger learners, I was excited to help. Last year, when it was time once again to submit community funding project proposals, I submitted the GCS application to and advocated once again to House leadership, making it clear how impactful the federal funding had already been and could continue to be for our students and our community. So I'm very glad to announce that I was able to secure an additional $2.2 million in federal funding to help fund the middle school Learning Hubs expansion project. Not only will this funding support one-on-one tutoring, but it will also create learning hubs that will allow their impact to go far beyond the traditional school day. These federal dollars will help GCS implement comprehensive support programs, providing students in need with transportation, school materials, meals, and mental health guidance. And I just want to say that for all of those who work in our middle schools, we know what a difficult transitional time of life that is, and I want to thank each and every one of you who works with our middle school students.
Thank you, Representative Manning. We do have one of our middle school principals with us here today, not by chance. Chase Arrington from Western Middle came and asked shortly after we launched high school Learning Hubs, when are you bringing this to middle school? I'm ready. We're ready. We need this. Mr. Arrington, will you share a little bit about why you're excited about the expansion of Learning Hubs to our middle schools?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Oakley. So I'm Chase Arrington, the proud principal at the Western Guilford Middle School, and I'm so thankful for the opportunity to sit here with this panelist to discuss the opportunity for my students to accelerate their learning beyond the traditional school day. Thank you, Representative Manning, for doing this for middle school, because middle school is it's some challenging years, right? And so through those years, our students face so many challenges that go beyond the traditional workday. And I know in my building, my teachers are doing the absolute best they can between the hours of 8:20 and 3:20. But we realize that there are some additional things that need to be done beyond that school day. And so with those limited opportunities during the school day, the resource that the Learning Hub can provide to my students to accelerate their learning, because we can't go back and teach everything that they missed during the pandemic, because then the gap is only going to widen. So what we can do is accelerate their opportunity for growth and to continue working on closing those gaps that our students have, closing those holes that they have in their learning. And then this will provide better opportunities for high school to continue increasing that graduation rate. So again, thank you for this opportunity, and I'm so excited to see this unfold. As I shared, when I received the email, I immediately responded, yes, I'm excited. And so I thank you for this opportunity, and I look forward to what's next with the Learning Hubs.
Thank you, Mr. Arrington. Of course, as we all know, academic progress is only one of the issues that we're continuing to face in public schools. And as we support students and their families, we know students perform better when they feel physically and emotionally safe, seen, and supported. The uptick of mental health issues in our schools and in our country is alarming following the pandemic, and both students and staff continue to tell us about the need for greater access to mental health services. It doesn't matter which meeting we're attending or who the audience is, it comes up as the #1 priority. In Guilford County Schools, we have prioritized expanding our mental health support for students and staff alongside expanding the learning recovery efforts. Using the time-limited federal relief dollars, we launched a pilot at 86 schools to provide on-demand mental health services to students with parental consent. We also know, though, that adults are not immune. That's why last December we expanded the services to teachers and staff. Our employees cannot pour into our students if they aren't whole themselves. We expect so very much from them, and I'm grateful for all that they give to our students. GCS was fortunate to receive a $14.8 million federal grant from the U.S. Department of Education to expand these on-demand mental health resources for students. The 2021 Youth Risk Behavior Survey shares data that was released just in December that shows alarming mental health trends among students here in North Carolina. This funding will allow us to address mental health needs further and strengthen the resources in our schools to support students and staff. The good thing about this particular grant is that it will provide funding for 16 new full-time mental health clinician positions over the next 5 years. The school-based clinicians may be trained in counseling, psychology, or social work, and will help us begin to improve the ratio of counselors, psychologists, and social workers serving students. The school-based mental health services grant requires federal and district project investments. The federal government will provide 75% of the project funding, and the district will provide a 25% match. The Department of Ed will provide $14,835,019 over 5 years, and GCS will provide just over $3,700,000, bringing the total investment in school-based mental health services here in Guilford County to students to $18,543,744. Many factors impact our ability to provide mental health supports to students and staff. We have a limited number of school psychologists and counselors and social workers and trained mental health coordinators. There is also a pipeline issue. GCS does not receive funding to have full-time trained school psychologists or social workers at each school. So many go across at least 3 schools in a given week, if not more. An increasing number of requests for student evaluations in consideration of an individualized education plan also limits the ability of our school psychologists to provide other services that they're highly trained to provide to students. There's a need for additional mental health coordinators to support the on-demand services at each school as well. And there's a limited number of trained mental health professionals available just here in the community and in the state and in our country, given the high demand for mental health services following the pandemic. So the time-limited federal relief dollars, while the on-demand services have been well received, such services are dependent on the federal dollars that expire in 2024, which is something we have to continue to advocate. With us today, we do have mental health coordinator Latasha Henry. Ms. Henry, if you don't mind just speaking about how these funds will be beneficial for our students.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, Dr. Oakley, and thank you so much, Representative Manning. These funding will assist us in helping our students reach and receive resources that they so desperately need. So many students are in need of counseling, so having school-based mental health services at school allows the opportunity for the students to see a counselor or a clinician face-to-face. It takes the burden off of parents having to find transportation or find time in their schedules to allow their students to receive counseling services. This also gives us an opportunity to retain and keep well-qualified clinicians, and it gives us an opportunity to give the students and the families what they need: resources, self tools to be successful. And so I'm really grateful to work for a district that takes mental health matters seriously and that is pouring back into their community as well as their staff and students. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Manning, I know that you also bring mental health concerns to the advocacy table frequently.
Yes, I do. As a member of the Education and Workforce Committee in Congress, I understand the vast role that schools play in our children's lives and the impact that a healthy school environment can have on their overall health. An alarming report from North Carolina Healthy Schools showed the reality in students' declining mental health and made clear the need for swift action from what resulted during the pandemic. During the years of 2019 to 2021, the number of North Carolina youth experiencing one or more major depressive episodes increased by 46%. That's why I introduced the bipartisan Improving Mental Health and Wellness in Schools Act, legislation to integrate mental health promotion and education within existing local school wellness policies. That bill would create a comprehensive approach to teaching students about the interconnectedness of physical and mental health while helping them gain access to professional support. And I just want to emphasize, it's critical that we take away the stigma of seeking help for mental health challenges. Mental health issues arise all across the community from kids from all different walks of life, and we need to help kids understand that seeking help for mental health challenges is normal and something that they should feel free to do. I am also pleased to celebrate the $15 million grant from the U.S. Department of Education that was awarded to Guilford County Schools to expand on-demand mental health services. And that grant will empower GCS to hire, as we just heard from Dr. Oakley, has already empowered GCS to hire 16 mental health clinicians for the next 5 years to help students recover from the impacts of the pandemic. And one thing I think we need to remember, we have so many kids across our school system. Not only did they suffer from having to learn at home, not being in their classrooms with their friends, not having their teachers right there, we have so many kids who lost family members during the pandemic, people who lost caretakers. This is a huge challenge that fortunately most of us have never experienced when we were young. These are challenges that our kids are trying to deal with every day. And I suspect those 16 mental health clinicians that we can hire for the next 5 years is a help, but I'm sure we can still use more. By providing students with the tools and the resources they need, we can at least help lift them up and help them make real progress toward improving mental health and, as I said, removing that stigma. I look forward to receiving an update on the impact this additional funding will have, and also I look forward to requests for additional help because I know the needs will be there. Just earlier today, I want to add, I held a mental health roundtable with principals and teachers, mental health providers, and a variety of stakeholders who work every day to help our students overcome challenges, including mental health challenges and the toxic environments that some of them live in that impact their ability to learn. We want all of our children to succeed, and I was thrilled to hear and learn from the people who do the tough work every day to help our students succeed. And so in Congress, I will remain committed to supporting public schools, to boosting the academic achievement and improving mental health of all of our students. I'm proud to have secured federal funding for Guilford County Schools to expand their Learning Hub initiative. I'm thrilled that additional federal funding is being awarded to the district to increase mental health services, and I look forward to the opportunity to continue working to bring our tax dollars back home to the district to help our students, our families, our faculty, because they are our future. I want to thank Dr. Oakley for her visionary leadership of our school district, to Ms. Henry, to Principal Arrington for all the good work he does, to all of the educators, mental health professionals, and school leaders who teach and care for our students and build a stronger future for us right here in North Carolina. Thank you.
Thank you. As we close out, I just want to add that tutoring programs offer opportunities for others to come and help. In addition to partnering with universities, members of our community can also sign up to come and tutor and to help our students. You can visit gcsnc.com. We would love to have more people be involved. We plan to stay the course until every student that needs a tutor has a tutor. We want to make sure we can sustain our programs and continue advocating for sound policies that put students first. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much to our panelists. And at this time, we are going to open things up for a brief question and answer period. We ask that any members of the media who have questions would please use the mic. Please state your name, your news affiliate, and then please state your question.
They're overwhelmed with
Justin Berger, ABC 45. This is for Dr. Oakley and Representative Manning. We saw last night, unfortunately, another mass shooting. This time it was a university, not a high school or middle school, but it's not the easiest time to wrap your head around going to school when stuff like this is happening seemingly too often. So you talk about kids talking to counselors about stuff they're facing maybe at home, but what about being afraid of what might happen when they go to school? How do you sort of address that issue?
So what we talk about a whole lot when we discuss school safety is that when we look at the tragedies that have happened across our country, there's not one piece of equipment that would have prevented them from happening. In fact, it's meaningful relationships. And so we continue to urge students and teachers and staff members to, if they see something, they say something. And we've continued to expand training to help kids and adults understand that meaningful relationships is probably the best school safety strategy that we can possibly employ. So making sure that we get that message out and that students have a trusted adult in the building to help make that a safe space, but also to provide connections if needed. I think as we continue to expand access to mental health supports, we're hoping that, schools aren't just a place for teaching and learning anymore. We're continuing to take on more, but in order for students to succeed academically, they have to feel safe at school, and we have to create the conditions for that to happen.
So let me just say, in response to what you mentioned, and it was yet again a horrifying bit of news, another school shooting. And I think what it points out is, first of all, our kids today, they face real challenges. We live in an increasingly frightening world, and it is critical for our kids to be able to learn coping skills so that they can succeed with all of the challenges that they are facing. But let me also say that as a member of Congress, I'm going to take this leap here. I sit on the Gun Safety Task Force, and we meet on a monthly basis to try to figure out what are reasonable steps we can take to try to keep people safe, to try to keep kids safe, to try to keep people safe when they go to church, when they go out to shopping centers, when they go to movies. I believe we need to take more steps to keep people safe. And we see how it impacts kids in school. And honestly, with all of the things that our kids deal with, it's no wonder that we have the mental health challenges that we're seeing in schools.
Hi, my name is Joshua Davis. I'm a reporter with WXII 12 News in Winston-Salem. This question is for Dr. Oakley and possibly you, Ms. Henry. So when it comes to students' mental health, coping mechanisms is something that can help address certain challenges. But I think also in addition to that, parents might think, hey, what are prevention strategies when it comes to, stopping risky behaviors and certain challenges before they even happen? And I'm just curious, the clinicians that we have and the staff that you have who are going to be used to deal with these issues, to communicate with these students and interact with these students, are they prepared for those moments and to discuss with these students those coping mechanisms and those prevention strategies?
So I can tell you that we haven't hired the positions that are in this grant yet. But for example, we are school psychologists, are licensed trained mental health professionals. And so they do have the skills to be able to do that. The governing body or the accrediting body of each, whether it's the School Psychologists Association or the counselors, follow the national research. And certainly time has changed. I use the example of vaping. that wasn't nearly as present in schools 20 years ago as it is today. So the role changes with the times. And as Representative Manning mentioned, it's certainly a complex time. But I think in terms of do we have trained professionals to provide these services? Yes. And as we're hiring, we will continue to make sure that we're able to do that. I think part of this, the mental health grant, the Department of Ed grant, is to also build the pipeline, because there is a shortage across our country and our state and our community. So partnering with universities to develop that. We always also like to remember that what plays out in schools are just a microcosm of what's happening in the larger community. And we see that play out again and again and again. So the more that we can partner with our families, partner with our communities to make sure that we are destigmatizing mental health and increasing access is some of the most important work we can do.
We have time for one final question before we have to wrap up.
I have two, but the first one's quick. Justin Berger again with ABC 45. Dr. Oakley, just quickly, those 16 positions you said haven't hired yet. I think we talked about this already, but there's no timeline, just as quickly as possible.
Yes, now that we've secured the grant funding, we are able to post and begin the interview process for those positions.
Sounds good. Ms. Henry, Principal Arrington, follow-up to my first question. Principal Arrington, maybe you're not having conversations every day with your students, but Ms. Henry, maybe you are. Are you hearing this, concerns about safety inside the school? Are students bringing this to your ears?
So I think Dr. Oakley shared it best. Meaningful relationships is powerful. And so when we tell students, if you see something, say something, let us get on the ground running and talking about it and trying to address that as best as possible. And one thing I can say about Guilford County Schools is that they make their central office staff very much available if we have questions or concerns. And so it's nothing for me to pick up the phone and call a Mike Ritchie and say, hey, this is what I have, what are my next steps? And so if something comes up, people bring it to us, and our teachers are aware, our students are aware, our parents are aware. So it's really about making that conversation and that awareness with our students and our community to say, hey, schools can address issues or concerns when we know about it. So.
Guilford County Schools has a lot of trained staff, youth mental health first aid, and a lot of our students are not as concerned about gun safety within our school buildings, but I do want to address your concern about mental health. Our clinicians not only are building a relationship with the students, staff, and the parents, they take time to also have that relationship so that they can see the students over the weekends, over the summertime, to build that relationship with those families. Many of our clinicians are youth mental health first aid trained, as well as trauma-informed trained. And so addressing those mental health concerns, starting in the middle school, is one of our utmost tasks that we want to make sure that we address. And I would like to just share a success story. I had a student who actually received school-based mental health. She was referred to the program by her teacher, and she felt as though the family dynamics in her family was her fault. And unfortunately, it wasn't. Her grades started slipping. Her social activities began to fall as well. After seeing the mental health clinician twice a week for 45 minutes, she began to realize that her family dynamics changing was not her fault. She began to realize that she has confidence and that her family is still a family, even though mom and dad may live in a different household. And so that would not have been a success story if school-based mental health was not offered to that particular family. And not only that, the student did well academically, but we were also able to link the entire family to counseling as a family unit. And so school-based mental health is needed, and we're here to stay, and we're here to address those concerns for our students and staff.
Again, we want to thank you all for being here with us, and we certainly thank Congresswoman Manning, as well as Ms. Henry and Principal Arrington and Dr. Oakley for your willingness to be with us this afternoon. Thank you again for coming.